Welcome to the Pigskin Party Podcast, the only podcast that combines real NFL analysis with a splash of pop culture and a dash of the random. Let's get this Pigskin Party started with your hosts, Brian McFadden and Will Southard.
Welcome to the PPP. My name is Brian. You are listening to the main NFL episode. Please make sure to stick around for the flavor of the week. If you did not catch our episode last week, we are now 100% NFL, baby. No more random topics for our flavor of the week. We're going to hit you with the main NFL episode. We're going to go through some news, do some fun segments. Then we're going to cleanse your palate and do a whole nother NFL segment. So please make sure to stick around. We're probably going to drop it a little bit early this week, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. But first, joining me as always, rocking the whole sleeveless shirt look thing. I don't know if it's supposed to be like an intimidation factor or if he's just going full 100% Florida. Will Southard, how you doing, dude?
Feeling lucky, man. It's early. I don't like this daylight savings BS. It's not good. It's not good. But that's
yeah. And I have 3 less hours than you do right now.
Yeah. it's sleeves off, pants off time on the podcast. So this should be
okay.
Should be a good discussion.
So please do not get up to get any props, as you have been prone to do, if you truly do not have anything on from the waist down. Please make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, comment, make sure to tell a friend, because that's how we grow this Pigskin Party. Now, as Will mentioned, it's a little earlier than normal. There is only one other time we have ever recorded this early, and it was for a special Across the Pond guest. Well, guess what? We are doing it again, except we are doing it double time. So the first guest we're going to bring in, a guy whose show I've been on twice, host of the UNAmerican Football Show, Nate Orrow, all the way from the UK. Nate, how you doing, dude?
Yeah, I'm good. I apologise for dragging you two out of bed so early, but yeah, I'm really glad to be here.
No, super excited to have you. As I mentioned, I've been on your show a couple times, so we've been planning this, I want to say, like for a couple months. We knew we were going to bring you on. If you're watching the YouTube video, you can clearly see by the choice of hat that he is indeed a Colts fan.
Yes, I am, for my sins.
Well, things have not looked too bad recently. So, Nate, super excited to have you. But you are not the only person from across the pond that is joining the PPP today. Our repeat champion coming on again. The last time we got up early on a Sunday morning to have somebody from over there. Colum Cronin, co-host of the Irish NFL show, coming back on the Pigskin Party podcast. Colum, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm sorry I missed out on the wear blue memo that appears to have been going around, and the no pants memo. But good to be back with you guys and get the chance to talk all things football. I think the last time I was on was when you had tried initially or trialing going completely football and moving away from maybe some of the things you've done previously. So now it's a full-time thing. Here we are.
That's true. First of all, to be fair, I think Will is the only one who got the memo about no pants. So let's make sure that we're not included in that. And second, you're absolutely right. The only other time we have done full 100% NFL for both episodes was the Super Bowl preview special, where we had you on previewing the big game and we talked about Deshaun Watson destinations. So it's the luck of the Irish. You're coming on and then we're going right back into it. So it is free agency week and it's St. Patrick's Day. So we've got a special segment to tie those two things in together. Super excited. We are going to continue our team deep dive series by jumping into the Colts, one of the reasons we have Nate on. But first, let's start with some news. So the first thing I want to start with is something we've speculated about a little bit, and that is Cam Newton's future. I was very adamant that there was no way Belichick was going to bring him back, and it was all smoke and mirrors saying that they had a good relationship. But hey, I'll admit when I was wrong. So Cam signed, it's not a huge deal, signed a 1-year contract to be back with New England next year. It's worth nearly $14 million. So the question I want to start with, and of course I'm going to start with Will on this as the former Patriots, fair weather, who knows who he cheers for these days.
Fake news.
Fake fan. Fake fan is what you
news.
Are. So
it's $14 million. The base deal is $5 million. So there's
interesting.
That. It's very very incentive laden, which obviously is a smart move by Patriots. The thing is he had a very polarizing year last year, right? And by polarizing, it was the bad poll. It was really bad. So
I don't know what that means, but keep going.
I mean, like, it could be good or bad. Some people,
Gotcha.
Obviously, Bill was a fan, right? Bill was on, but he had a really bad year. That said, the Pats' offense was just a mess. Like, missing Edelman, they were playing with like the C squad in wide receivers and tight ends, like Ryan Izzo and whoever the other cat is that plays in New England. They got to give him some talent this year. I mean, yeah, bringing him back was better than the Stidham option, but we'll see. Obviously, like you said, Bill was a fan. He's not. I mean, he had some really bad throws, and the other thing is the COVID thing. Who knows how that affected him? He said it did going forward. So we'll see, man. But it's better than nothing. It's put it this way. Cam Newton is better.
That's
than,
a raving endorsement. Cam Newton is better than nothing.
Than Jarrett Stidham, for sure.
Okay, so he's a notch above Jarrett Stidham, and it was interesting. He put out a quote after this that Bill Belichick's misunderstood, and he's a cool cat, or however Cam talks.
Of course.
To be determined. But here's the question I want to throw to you, Colum. Do we think this is a contract where Cam is going to be the starter, or do you think New England is still trying to find their quarterback of the future, and this is more just like almost a bridge situation?
Oh, I think this is definitely a bridge situation. I think the way they've set this up, it tells you what they're looking at. They just didn't want to be in a position like they were in last year, where they kind of put all the eggs in the Stidham basket and then realized by the time they got to camp, this is not good. So I think this is a kind of a safety blanket that you put in place, that they can look to the draft if that's what they want to do, and bring somebody in. That Cam at least knows the lingo, and we know that New England offense is jargon heavy. So bringing a guy back is probably no harm. Clearly, he gets on with Belichick and he puts the work in. But like for even, as and Will said, like the base salary is so small, right? But even with the incentives, he's going to earn less than Taysom Hill. That tells you really what the Patriots think of this.
Probably have less touchdowns too.
But I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I mean, being better than Stidham is akin to being taller than Danny DeVito. So, I don't think
it's a short bar.
Yeah, there's nothing to crow about there. I just think the Cam is. He'll never get back to 2015 Cam. Between the Super Bowl and the first game of that 2016 season, I mean, the Broncos just absolutely targeted him, and Danny Trevathan probably more than anyone in the Super Bowl. I don't know if you've heard that story about towards at the start. There's a few different stories about Talib setting it up and Talib not wanting players to talk, but then Danny Trevathan getting into Cam's face, and Cam trying to give it back, and Danny Trevathan, Cam is like, there's no need to do talking, I'm gonna kind of let my play do the talking, and Danny Trevathan basically saying, well, you haven't done anything today, and nobody coming to Cam's defense on the Panthers side, just like silence, and then obviously you saw Cam jump out of the way of the football. I think I don't think Cam has ever been the same since then. But can be good enough to act as a bridge if they can bring somebody in. All the talk seems to be around Mac Jones,
right?
But
the Saban ties, Belichick,
and
Will disagrees.
No, I don't disagree. I just think he's doo-doo biscuits.
Okay. Dude, well, I'm fine with the doo-doo biscuit quarterback being in New England. So
absolutely.
I want to throw this one to Nate. So, what on what Colum just said, do you think they draft a quarterback with their first round pick? Do you think? And the idea is Cam. I mean, as much as Cam can mentor somebody, do you think that's the idea? Do they bring in a different veteran to have him compete with Cam? What are your thoughts, Nate?
It does look like they're probably leaning towards picking up a quarterback, whether it's a draft or whether it's a free agent pickup. I'm not sure. Probably more likely to be the draft. And the rumors are that Mac Jones obviously has been heavily linked with New England. We did a a mock draft of the first round, and we had them taking a offensive lineman, I think, because that you got to protect whoever's there, and it's not something that they've done.
Whichever doo-doo biscuits quarterback is back there.
Yeah, whoever's in the backfield throwing turds around the field. Yeah, you need to protect them whether they're catchable or not.
I mean, Cam threw a whole 8 touchdowns last year, so you got to protect those 8.
I like how in Colin's story Cam said, "I'm going to let my play do the talking." I really don't think that's how Newton put that out there. Number one, and number two, I believe the comment when he first got to New England was "quote unquote this shit calculus." That was his first post when he got to New England and looked at the playbook, according to Colum's jargon-heavy offense.
So. and that's the quarterback that Bill's going to bring back to lead the team in 2021. Now, I'm agreeing with you guys. It made sense to bring him back, to have a veteran who's at least somewhat familiar and at least has not a much higher, but at least a higher ceiling than Jarrett Stidham. But I just don't see him being the starter in 2021. I think I believe they'll draft somebody. I mean, Bill's never really hasn't drafted a first-round quarterback ever. Even Brady was a 6th-rounder, so remains to be seen. But I think there's a legacy issue here around Bill. He wants to do this again, right? He wants to show that it wasn't Tom, that he can bring in a new quarterback and be successful again. So, since we're speaking so much about Tom, let's go on to the next issue. We've actually gone a few episodes without heavily mentioning Brady, so I'll throw Will a bone here. Because there is a little bit of Tom Brady news. So Brady signed an extension with the Bucs. I believe it's 3 or 4 years, but they're all voidable except one, because all of these new deals getting signed, all these extensions, you could have a 20-year deal and then they void 19. It's like all of this, cap mumbo jumbo, but it's essentially a 1-year extension. Keeps him in Tampa Bay through the 2022 season. So he signed a 2-year deal last year. So he was already in contract through this year, 2021, and then the following year as well. The main point here, besides that it gives Tom a little bit more longevity and playing closer to that 45 number that he has said, is that it saves them about $19 million in cap space. What I want to ask you guys about, and I'll start with Nate on this one, is so they franchise tagged Chris Godwin. We actually were speculating that he would not be tagged, and Levante David got a new deal. So do you think this, and we're going to talk a little bit more about free agents later, but Nate, how do you think this sets them up to bring back Shaq Barrett or maybe Antonio Brown or and Gronk, even any of these other free agents that were on the Super Bowl team?
I mean, you have to, if you've got Shaq Barrett and the talks have been at all productive, you've got to keep him, haven't you? I don't see it making any sense. Obviously, the cap situation might lead them to take the hit and just let him move on. But obviously, I mean, like the 19 million saving in cap space of the with Brady's switch around does make things easier on that front. I think we'll probably end up seeing maybe Shaq Barrett and Antonio Brown re-sign. Gronk, nah. Look, he's a great blocking tight end.
He scored 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl,
and he still managed to score 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. But I mean they got OJ Howard coming back. They still have Cam Braids. Yeah. He's not the crucial part of that offense. Even with his off the field problems and his borderline clinical insanity, I'd rather probably have Antonio Brown at this stage than Gronkowski, personally. But yeah, I mean, you have to keep Shaq Barrett.
Let's be honest. Like, Gronk's not going anywhere else, right?
No.
So he's either going to play there
retirement,
or he's done. So that's
I'll take done. I don't
think so though. I think he would take way below whatever you would call his market to stay there. Who knows? I mean, they're getting OJ Howard back, which is huge. I mean, what a weapon that has been just criminally underutilized in that offense.
He's also had injury issues, but yeah, agreed.
So I don't know, but I mean, hey, you saw Shaq Barrett's response to Tom Brady's contract, which was very positive. So I know we're talking about Brady right here, but everybody talks about, hey, by the way, I love when we do segments about Brady. It's great.
Well, let's speed this up then. I don't want to spend too much time on this.
2 years, right? So now he's looking, it depends on how they do, I mean, he could be back even more, but I do know this. I live an hour and a half from Tampa. I will be at a lot of Bucs games this year just to get my fix in before he dies.
And I have no doubt I'll hear about it 1 million times over the course of the next season. Colum, any thoughts on Brady's extension and how that sets the Bucs up for next year?
It's an interesting one in that you're looking at the voidable years, right? And we have seen what the voidable years have done in other places. And Andrew Brandt on Twitter has been really interesting about this because he talked about how when he was with the Packers, he really desperately tried to avoid this because you're robbing from the future, and eventually you have to pay the piper. I can see teams doing it this year because of the lower cap, but eventually, this is not players taking a haircut. This is just pushing it out. So while it is saving teams cap, players aren't giving anything up by doing this. So I think sometimes there can be this perception that all these look at what these guys are doing. Aren't they so great for giving up the money? They're not giving up the money. They are helping their teams right now, but they're also helping themselves. I mean, in Brady's, he wants to win rings. Great for him. The Bucs pick up the pieces in a few years. I think that the Bucs are obviously in with a great shout if you keep that team in place. But I do think one of the really interesting things around this was Rich Eisen did a piece around cap hits. I don't know if anyone saw that about over the last 10 Super Bowl winners. And the highest that any QB was just under 13%. Brady this year had been on course for 15%. Obviously, that has changed a little bit now. But Aaron Rodgers is 20% of the Packers, all their cap space. Matt Ryan is the only guy higher. If you're looking to win rings, you have to do what Brady has done and the Bucs have done here, because you need to have all the weapons around. So makes a lot of sense if you're chasing an 8th ring. Then Brady has done the right thing.
Please don't put that in the universe. I can't handle another Brady Super Bowl.
At this point, I've just
I won't discount it. I'm not betting against him, trust me, but I'd rather not at least put that in the universe. I will mention one thing. You talked about, Colum, the kind of paying the piper. I think the Saints are dealing with that a little bit because they gave Breeze one of those voidable contracts back before it was cool. And I think they're down to only negative 40 million now, but they were at negative 90. Yeah, at one point.
If you get drafted by the Saints this year, you're playing. I mean, it's great. If you're a young guy, you want to make a mark, pray you get drafted by the Saints because they're going to have to play you.
We should do a whole segment on how gutted the Saints look going into next year because everybody's gone.
Michael Thomas just restructured his contract. There was a lot of speculation about they might trade him but no, he's back. They re-signed Kamara last year, so Brees he still hasn't retired. Everybody knows he's going to, but why is it what's
he's in no rush, is he? He's in no rush.
I guess so.
There's probably some bonus tied in that if he announces his retirement after the draft or something, then he'll get an extra 10 million or something stupid.
That's got to be it, right? He's not actually thinking. They already restructured his contract in a way that suggests that he's going to retire.
Yeah.
So let's talk about free agency because that leads us right into the QB discussion in New Orleans. So here's what I wanted to do this week, and to be fair, this was actually Colum mentioned it to me. Coming from Ireland with St. Paddy's Day coming up, so and free agency starts. The league year starts this week. So I wanted to tie in a little St. Paddy's Day special here on the PPP. So what I wanted to task you guys with is we're going to talk about the luck of the Irish, but as it relates to free agency, which of these free agents, so we're past the franchise tag deadline, some of these teams are going to, legal tampering starts tomorrow, or if you're listening to this, it will have already started, and some of these people will already be on teams or linked to teams. So which of the free agents, we'll go around the horn a couple times, do you think are primed to be the luckiest, whether that's with the team that they land, the contract that they end up getting, the situation, whatever. Nate, I want to start with you on this one. Of the free agents that are still currently available, Name one that you think is primed to get a little luck of the Irish.
So my first sort of pick up on this is going to be Carl Lawson from Cincinnati. He's 25 years old. He's coming off of his rookie deal. He's 20 sacks over his first 4 seasons, which isn't incredible numbers, but he only played 2 or 3 games in his first year, so it's not bad. And this year, he 10.5 sacks started, even if it wasn't him that finished it off. It's 10.5. So there's only 5 or 6 players above him in that respect. I think he's going to get lucky because he's escaping. He's probably going to escape the Bengals because they didn't tag him. And although they're going to try to restructure things and keep him there, he's got a very good chance of escaping that place.
That place.
And he's probably going to end up having 12, 13, 14, maybe even if a team goes mental, 15 million annually. There's probably a sizable bonus for signing there as well. So he's going to go somewhere and he's going to earn big. And wherever he goes is going to get a really, really efficient pass rusher. So,
and you think about the teams that have the cap space and just how much they value edge rushers.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's only 25. Jets,
Jacksonville, Indy. Oh yeah, I'd take him. For sure.
Nice. Colum, who do you think a free agent that's primed to get lucky?
Well, we mentioned him earlier, but for me, Shaq Barrett, because I think this is an interesting one, because you go all the way back, right, to the Broncos' decision not to keep Shaq. And he has played like a man with a chip on his shoulder ever since. And if you I think, gave certainly me a choice. I think there are probably people in Broncos country who wouldn't agree, but Shaq Barrett should have stayed. And this is, some of it's hindsight, but it never made a whole lot of sense to me. The Bradley Chubb thing. Bradley Chubb is a very good player, but is Bradley Chubb a difference maker in the way that you wanted that kind of number 5 pick to be? I don't think he is. I don't think he's had the career that you really have wanted him to have. Some of that is obviously down to the injury, but you're now dealing with a guy with the knee injuries. Shaq has gone to Tampa Bay. He puts up ridiculous sack numbers, obviously, in season 1. And then he's wrecks the other teams in the playoffs. I mean, he could easily have been the Super Bowl MVP if Mahomes isn't doing Mahomes thing and running around like a lunatic. Like the amount of yards Mahomes ran for in the Super Bowl, and most of that was because he was running from his life from Shaq Barrett. So while Shaq mightn't have had the same regular season because he's getting double team more, he was a wrecking ball in the playoffs. So to me, I think he's likely to stay because they want to keep him. I think that's why they've moved things around. So he may take a little bit less. He'll still get paid, but I think the Bucs are serious contenders because the Saints are so decimated. The Bucs are going to go to the playoffs again next year. I think Shaq's going to be with them. Worst case scenario for him, he doesn't sign with the Bucs and he gets a hell of a payday somewhere else.
I mean, the answer to why is Shaq Barrett lucky in the free agency is because he has the opportunity to play with Tom Brady again.
We should all be so lucky, right? Well,
I mean, really, honestly.
All right. Well, let's rather than going down the Tom Brady rabbit hole again, how about you, Will? Let's talk about a free agent that you think is primed to get lucky in this free agency.
All right. So let's go. I'm gonna go. Let's stick with since we just talked about a quarterback, I'll do my quarterback first, and I think it's Fitzy, man. I think it's Ryan Fitzpatrick just because. I mean, let's talk about a player who just thrives on luck anyways, right? I mean, honestly,
they don't call him Fitz Magic for nothing.
That's the thing, right? So there's that. His last deal in Miami, 2 years, $11 million, not expensive. You break that down, maybe $6 million a year, $7 million a year, something like that. I think a couple. New England would have been a landing spot. Sad face, probably not anymore, right? But a couple of interesting places that he could go.
By the way, thankfully, I don't think I could stand to see Fitz, and it would complete the AFC East cycle for Fitz.
It would have been a bad fit. It would have been a bad fit for Fitz because he doesn't have his targets, But a couple of targets that I think would be interesting. The football team, very interesting landing spot as a bridge. The Niners, maybe. We'll see what happens with Jimmy G, but maybe. Denver, maybe. The Bears, if they don't cash in on the Russell Wilson sweepstakes that they're going for. And unconventional one, how about the Texans? The Texans as a gap bridging post Deshaun, what's that? Rebound hookup? Rebound hookup. Yeah. So maybe.
That's actually a really interesting connection that I haven't seen really made out there, because
that's because I made it.
Oh yeah, okay. Because the world was waiting for Will to make this connection, but no, it's great because they're going to be forced to trade Deshaun as much as they say. When we've talked about this. We had a whole segment on last time this Colum was here. They're going to be forced to do it. If they don't trade Deshaun, honestly, they're idiots. They've backed themselves into this. So what better way to bring a little bit of excitement in a year where you will have given away your franchise legend in J.J. Watt and given away the future of your team in Deshaun Watson than to bring in somebody who's just going to be fun and YOLO, and they'll probably still go 2-14 or wait, 2-15 if there's 17 games. But it'll be fun along the way.
It's not a Texans move, though. Let's be honest.
No,
the Texans move to have fun.
Right.
The Texans move is
Nick
to trade.
Caserio is not going to bring in Fitzpatrick.
The Texans move is to trade for either Garoppolo or Cousins. Let's be honest. Isn't it? Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, no. I don't agree with a lot of what you say because it's all posturing about Tom Brady. But I've got to give you that one.
By the way, that should be a tagline
Brady.
for this show. Will postures about Tom Brady. It's just we can't avoid it.
You guys should be the biggest fans. How many people in the UK are probably named Thomas Edward Patrick Brady? Probably a lot.
One.
At least 3 of those names. At least 3 of those names are very common.
In that order, because of him, none.
But it's more like Tommen, Edard, Patrice.
It's not Westeros.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's right. They're not. It's not medieval times over there in the UK and Ireland.
No one over here has ever heard of the name Eddard until it popped up in Game of Thrones.
Honestly, when I heard that in Game of Thrones, I was like, that is the dumbest name I've ever heard in my entire life.
And then
I'm pretty sure
Ned.
I think George R.R. Martin made that name up. I don't even think that was a real medieval name because no one had heard of that. Let's stay on the quarterback discussion. I want to mention another free agent quarterback who I think is going to get lucky, and that's Jameis Winston. And here's why. And I'm not linking him necessarily to one team or another, but I think either he comes back with New Orleans, and yes, they've got cap issues, but he's playing for Sean Payton. They're going to be competitive. They've got weapons. It's a well-run organization. Or some QB-needy team is going to overpay for Houston after they get rid of Deshaun, Denver. You know, if they like to stay, they go for that upside. They already have Drew Lock, who is a little bit of a Jameis light in that he'll throw 4 touchdowns but also throw 4 interceptions. So why not get somebody with a higher ceiling? And I see Colum agreeing. So I want to get your take on this.
I'm agreeing on Drew is too loose with the football, and I think that Jameis had the 30 for 30 season. I don't see the Broncos because if the issue with Drew is he's not careful enough with it. You're going to need you're not going to need a gunslinger. When BA, right, who is the ultimate gunslinger as a coach, was like, "Nah, you're too risky for me. We're going to push you out of. We're going to push you out of town." Jim, he is so much fun, and if you brought him in, it's going to be massively entertaining. He had those huge games in his last year with the Bucs, but you equally have to deal with all that level of frustration. But I think you're right, Brian. Somebody will roll the dice because a proven in QB in the NFL, if you can do anything at all, somebody will roll the dice just to take a chance.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's whether he's successful. No, I'm not speculating on that. I just think he will get lucky. I think he'll get paid more than he probably should because they'll look at those 33 touchdowns and gloss over the 30 interceptions just in case they can untap his hidden potential. Let's go around the horn again. So, Nate, who is your second free agent who you think might be primed to get lucky? You are muted.
At least once an episode. For kind of similar reasons for Carl Lawson, as much as he's escaping a bad situation. I think it's Curtis Samuel. He had his best season last year, 851 yards, only 3 touchdowns, but his red zone targets were not as high as elsewhere on the field because he's more of a deep threat, really. I think if I was Curtis Samuel, I would want out of Carolina, and I'd probably be looking anywhere that's got a little bit of cap space and a quarterback who's capable of finding someone deep. I think
he's a great catch and run guy too. He's really a good run after our rack guy. And a lot of teams are really looking for that kind of player these days. They're looking for a guy who can get the ball in their hands and then make some defenders miss and turn a 5-yard slant into a 20-yard reception.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not saying that they're the same player at all because obviously one is doing silly numbers week in, week out, and one's Curtis Samuel. But like, teams want a Tyreek Hill kind of guy, and if you get him in the right situation, he can bring you closer to that. And I think if you goes, like I said, if you go somewhere with a quarterback capable of finding him deep, or just in a yard or two of space, to be honest, he's gonna bring offense numbers up wherever he goes.
He played some running back. I mean, you can utilize him in different ways.
You can, yeah. I mean, I think that was probably more a forced thing because of CMC being. I mean, at this stage, like he's an advert for physiotherapy, isn't he? But it's. Yeah, I mean, again, like Carl Lawson, I'm making that pick purely with my Indianapolis Colts hat on. We're probably going to let T.Y. Hilton hit the market and go.
Right.
He didn't have a great season. Samuel would complement the likes of Pascal and...
He had Phillip Rivers, though.
We don't have to turn this into a T.Y. Hilton discussion.
Phillip Rivers had a good season. It wasn't great, but he had a good season. T.Y. Hilton, he's old, man. I say he's old. He's a year younger than I am.
Still in his 20s.
Phillip Rivers and T.Y. Hilton is square.
He feels old, though. It feels like Hilton's been in the league for like 20 years, but yeah.
By the way,
T.Y. Hilton's 31. He's going to be 32. His legs are gone. He can't run. He can't run anymore. Let him go.
I just want you to know that I was browsing Twitter for contract updates for a second, and the first thing I read from Adam Schefter is Houston and Miami have a deal. And I was like, and I like keep reading, and it's Shaq Lawson for Benardrick McKinney. So there's a trade.
Wait.
But it wasn't anything. False alarm.
The Dolphins traded Shaq Lawson to Houston?
Correct.
Huh, interesting. We're breaking news here.
Breaking news.
Because by the time this comes out in a couple of days, that'll be old news.
And moving on to something else interesting now.
That's true. And news that nobody cares about.
Yeah.
All right,
even Brian has mild interest in that news.
Yeah, as a Dolphins fan, I'm like, meh.
Yeah.
All right, Colum, let's hear your second free agent who's going to get lucky this week.
Trey Hendrickson. I think he is going to get lucky because he had the perfect time to have a career year. I think the only reason he mightn't get lucky is Von Miller. Because are the Broncos going to bring Von Miller back? Could Von Miller hit the market? Now, if Von Miller hits the market, all bets are off because he will be an incredibly sought after edge guy, obviously. I think it's going to be very interesting if the Broncos really wanted him to come back. They could have done it by now, right? They control the contract, so there was the team option. They haven't taken the team option at the time of recording, so that to me speaks a lot. Obviously, we're less than 24 hours from the official tampering. So one to keep an eye on there. But for Hendrickson, like he had 13.5 sacks, 25 QB hits, and it wasn't nobody's. I mean, he took Brady twice, he took Mahomes twice. He gave Eric Fisher nightmares. He might be the reason that the Chiefs decided that, look, Fisher isn't the same player that he once was, because he absolutely monstered him. And I think if you're the Browns and the Browns have a decent level of space available, you want to bring somebody in to complement your elite edge rusher that you have in Myles Garrett. So you bring Trey Hendrickson in, and suddenly you've got that two-headed monster. And if you have a two-headed edge rushing monster, it's very difficult for teams because they can't quite double team in the same way, or if they really do, then your interior guys have all sorts of opportunities. So to me, because of the contract or the year he had last year, 13.5, no one can ignore that. When you are talking double-digit sacks, and you were second, I think, tied for second in terms of sacks in the league, people will sit up and take notice. He's going to get paid. I think it might well be the Browns, but look, the Lions might decide that, you know, they have some space. They might want to bring somebody in to, you know, if they brought in Goff, who is possibly the least exciting quarterback in the league.
He's not the future of that team.
No, he's not at all. Look, I almost think that was more of a salary dump and a contract dump by the Rams and the willingness of the Lions to take it on. But they may therefore want to give some excitement to their fans on the defensive side. You bring in a guy who can actually sack people. But I think regardless of where he goes, Hendrickson is getting paid.
I just got to interject and say I think Hendrickson's much more interesting a prospect than Von Miller at this stage.
I mean, just for the youth, if nothing else.
Yeah. Reputation-wise, and you know what he's done over the last, well, not so much over the last year or two, but certainly the 2 or 3 seasons before that, Von Miller is a hell of a name. But after his last year, I'd be massively put off.
Yeah, but look at what JJ just got paid. I mean, it's not just if you have that name. Sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah. Whether that's right or not is another matter.
Of course, whether that's right is an entirely different discussion. Betting on what Hendrickson is 24, 25. I mean, he's like, as Colum said, he's just coming off his rookie contract. Yeah,
he's just turned 26 in December, so
26
to me. But that's still relatively young. I find that interesting, Nick, because I think that the league. I think I mean, Von. The weird thing for Von is obviously like his numbers are incredible. Not helped by having Vance Joseph, who's going to hold back the Cardinals as your head coach. But I think people would look at it. And be willing to the fact that JJ got what he did. I think that's an issue for the Broncos have, because I think Von Miller has looked at that and gone, well, if JJ is getting 16, right, and Von Miller's had 2 major injuries in his career. Otherwise, he doesn't tend to pick up those niggly injuries. Yeah, it's a major one where he misses a year. He's thinking, well, I'm definitely worth the 18 here, and I think somebody would be willing to give him a 2-year deal to have Von Miller to be a kind of a DeMarcus Ware type. I could see somebody doing it.
Yeah. Will, do you want Colum to translate
what kind of injury?
A niggly injury.
Niggly?
Niggly?
It means like annoying. Like you can't quite get rid of it.
Got it.
It's not a major injury, but it's something small that annoys the hell out of you and then just carries on and carries on and carries on.
Also, did you just kick back a Corona?
Yes, I did.
Are those things like $46 per bottle over there? Like that thing, that Corona has made a trip, boy. That thing is.
The great news is that the coronavirus means that you can pick up bottles of Corona for like 60 cents.
Right. Stock is down. Stock is down on Coronas. Buy low.
This is not the beer I would have pictured you with, but that's fine.
I love that. You know, it's like 8 or 9 a.m. here. I'm drinking coffee and Colum's pounding back beers. I love it.
It's actually the 2022 2022 football season where Colum is right now.
Yeah, they're and Nate. They're a year ahead.
Brady
of us.
Brady already has 8 rings where Colum's at.
No.
Career-ending injury.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, Will, let's go on to you for your second free agent.
How dare you?
I was trying to skim past that. Let's just move off.
Here's a guy that now here's a guy. There's my John Madden. That I think is really interesting. Jonnu Smith, right? Tight end.
First, learn to say his name. That's for starters.
Jonnu Smith. Here's the thing. So $8 million ish. A lot of teams interested in him. He's a potentially get lucky segment because for a couple reasons. Number one, Hunter Henry is probably the better free agent tight end name coming into this year. So there's that. And what a tight end heavy class also, led by the future GOAT at the tight end position, Kyle Pitts from Florida.
Well, I don't know that the class itself is all that deep, but
I mean it's pretty decent. It's pretty decent.
Pitts is such a generational talent he's going
to be one of the best players on the board. Full stop.
Yes,
Agreed.
exactly. So this is a get lucky thing. I mean, he had a good year, right? I mean, early in the year, and then the Titans just totally went away from him. But 41 receptions, 450 yards, 8 touchdowns through 15 games, through 5 games, tied to the league in touchdowns. Seattle, even after acquiring about Ertz, possible landing spot for him. Cincinnati, the Jags. You imagine you don't have to pay too much for Jonnu if they miss out. Well, they will miss out on Pitts. Putting him in there for a good spot for Trevor Lawrence. The Jets, New England, the Colts, maybe. Nate's question about that, and then probably not the Saints. Let's be honest. So a lot of teams, right? Like a talent like that. Even though you have Henry out there, you have Pitts, you have all this stuff. I think he's going to get a really good landing spot with a very young quarterback. When you look at all that, Burrow, Lawrence, the ghost of Sam Darnold, or Wentz. I think he's an interesting player, underutilized, very, very good talent, and I'm excited to see where he ends up.
I hate to say this, I could see New England. Belichick's had success with tight ends in the past, and he hasn't really had those difference-making tight ends since Gronk. And that guy who murdered someone. But yeah, no, I could see him as an interesting pick there. I will wrap up the free agent discussion talking about Aaron Jones.
Wait a minute. Wait,
Aaron Jones.
Pause.
Oh.
Go back. Nate, do you think that Jonnu would be interested in, or the Colts would be interested in him? I was curious your take there.
It's a position that the Colts need to look at for sure.
You're not sold on Jack Doyle?
No, I mean, Jack Doyle's a good blocking.
Mo Alley-Cox.
Mo Alley-Cox is a weird one because
Trey Burton.
I did like Trey Burton this year, but I think he'll probably hit free agency again. Mo Alley-Cox is hitting free agency. The Colts aren't signing anybody who's going into free agency, by the way. No one, from the looks of things. Not a single player, which is interesting because
and they have the cap space, which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I probably want to bring back Xavier Rhodes, but we'll talk about that later. But tight ends, I like all 3 of the guys we had in this year. But
you should just line up all tight ends, just across the board.
Yeah.
It could be a really wide run, or we could throw it. You'll never know.
Yeah,
Carson Wentz and 10 tight ends.
Carson Wentz and 10 tight ends.
But none of the guys we had in this year are really the answer. But Burton and Doyle are towards the end of their careers. Mo Alley-Cox, there was questions about his productivity. He had a really good stint early on in the year, but then was dropping everything left, right, and centre towards the end, right. and then just didn't get the targets, even though he was in quite a lot.
So let's, because we're about to go deep into the Colts.
Aaron Jones. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so Nate's going to get his chance to talk all about the Colts, and we're going deep on them. So the final free agent that I think is primed to get lucky is Aaron Jones, and here's why. So because of the cap being down, it actually affected certain tag numbers, and the fact that running backs haven't really been getting paid as much, except for CMC, Alvin Kamara, those kind of things. So I believe his cap number would have only been about $8 million if Green Bay had chosen to tag him. But because they didn't, I think he's primed to get more than that. So that's why I think he's lucky. Whether he does sign a contract with Green Bay or goes to another team, he's been linked to Miami. I think that's an interesting choice as long as the contract isn't too high. It frees us up to use some of those high draft picks on a position other than running back, because I do think Aaron Jones is one of the better running backs in the league, and I don't believe you need an amazing running back to have a great offense. So yeah, there's no more deep analysis than that, other than I think he's going to get paid more than if he were to have been tagged by Green Bay. I just think there's going to be some team that's going to... There's always 1 or 2 running backs who get overpaid in free agency every year, and I think that's Aaron Jones. So...
Just please, God, Dolphins, just take Najee Harris. Please do it. Don't sign Aaron Jones.
But here's the thing. I like the idea of Najee Harris, but I don't know that I like the idea of spending one of our first-round picks on a running back. And you're going to need to spend a first-round pick to get Najee Harris or Travis Etienne. One of those two. I do think they're either going to go in the first round or early second before the Dolphins come around again. So I'd rather... There's more needs. There's more offensive line needs. I think they'll use their first pick on a wide receiver. We still need help on linebacker. So it's a good move if the Dolphins can secure for the right price a good, solid, dependable veteran running back like Aaron Jones. and free that spot, that draft pick up, to not have to use it on Najee Harris or Travis Etienne and use it on a different position. All right, so Nate is excited to talk about his Colts. He's mentioned them a few times. So our weekly team deep dive, we are doing the Indianapolis Colts. So as always, we brought a Colts fan on, this time all the way from the UK. So we're going to start with this, Nate. First, I want to hear kind of a bird's eye view. What are your thoughts on the 2020 season as a whole for Indy?
Going back to something Will said earlier, Phillip Rivers did better than anyone expected. 4,169 yards from a little over 600 attempts, which it's not stunning stuff, is it? But it's solid. 24 touchdowns, 11 interceptions.
It was an improvement over the Chargers. I mean, he definitely got better than he did at the end of his Chargers reign.
Less yards, more touchdowns, less picks. So,
more efficient.
More efficient, for sure. But I mean, the Colts maybe not a better team because of a particular quarterback, but let's I won't go into that too much. So we finished with a 11-5 record, which it's probably a little better than I thought we were going to do personally, because I was down on Rivers. I hated all off season. I was whenever it was mentioned, I was crying no. But actually, as the season progressed, I was like, okay, yeah, he's doing pretty well. Some games he was awful, like the Titans, the Titans in Indy when we lost 40-something to 20-something. Awful game. The Jacksonville opener, terrible. But if we we finished second in the AFC South, level with the Titans, but losing that on the tie break, so we can't really be too disappointing about it. I think
almost beat the Bills in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'll get to that. I think the week one loss to the Jaguars really set the tone for our season. Good numbers on the board in the first half. We were up, and then we shit in the second half. We put up 3 points against a team that didn't win for the rest of the season. It wasn't good. It wasn't good at all. But we had some really good and dominant wins. Some of the teams that we were dominant against, you would expect, like the Jets, the Lions. Pretty dominant against the Vikings and the Raiders. And the Jags at the end of the season.
Pittsburgh for a half.
Pittsburgh for a half, yeah. We were very close to losing twice against the Texans, which is a bad look. But rivalry games, you kind of have to throw form and everything out the window because they're up for it. And really, it was Indy forcing a fumble and then a really poor snap causing a fumble, which won us those games. But we probably should have beaten the Jags in the first game, and we probably should have beaten the Texans. So 11-5 is probably right on the money for our season. I'm still astounded that we managed to throw away a 17-point lead against Pittsburgh, which is their biggest ever comeback under Tomlin. Sorry. I was talking about other footballer there. But yeah. I think if I look at the players that really stood out, and there's a few, so brace yourselves, having really good years. Obviously, Quentin Nelson, Darius Leonard, DeForest Buckner. He's gone from being
probably my favorite lineman in the NFL. By the way, I love that dude.
Incredible, yeah, and one first round pick. He was the best pickup in the first round last year.
Yeah, great deal for the Colts.
Unreal. Kenny Moore was unbelievable, and particularly against the Raiders. I mean, that one-handed interception in the end zone off of the second best tight end in the league was outrageous. Costanzo, the retired Costanzo, Ryan Kelly, Braden Smith, basically the entire O-line. They killed it. Malik Hooker, Xavier Rhodes after having a really tough year in Minnesota the year before. And then obviously Jonathan Taylor, and finishing third in yards out of all running backs, as being in a division with the Jags. Everyone was going on about how incredible Robinson was, and he had a great year. But Jonathan Taylor started really slowly and just smashed the last 7 or 8 weeks. Nahim Heinz, who is for me the most underrated back in the league. that guy is so good, and he's so slippery
and underutilized,
and heavily underutilized. Yeah, and then obviously Zach Pascal and Michael Pittman kind of stepped up and sort of shared what T.Y. Hilton wasn't doing. In the end, I think we probably lost to Buffalo because of a dodgy Frank Reich 4th and short call.
Yeah.
Take the field goal, just going into half-time, take the field goal, stop them going down the field. I mean, there was a really bad Rock Ya-Sin penalty on the next Buffalo drive, but you go in at the half, I think it would have been 7 points up instead of however many it was, 10 points down. A whole different game in that second half, and I know the Colts are bad in the second half, or were last year. But you know, you kind of back your boys to do better and be a better side in the postseason because it means more at that stage, and you hope they rise to the occasion. And it was just the second half from there. We were just always playing catch up, and we did admirably. I think we only lost by 3 points in the end, but it just wasn't enough.
Right.
And it was a theme last season, Reich making the wrong call on 4 to go for it on 4th.
So let's look ahead to 2021, and the first item on there is the biggest change so far with the Colts, and that is their new quarterback. So Phillip Rivers retired, and they traded for Carson Wentz from Philadelphia. So first, I want to get your thoughts on the move. Are you sold on Carson Wentz? Do you think Reich can get him back to kind of those 2017 heights? What are your thoughts on Wentz?
I honestly don't know what to make of it. I don't know where I stand on it. I'm kind of nervous because 2020. But on the other hand, you know, that he's shown in the past he is capable of some outrageous quarterback play. He can move with the ball in hand. He can throw it deep and somewhat accurately, which, you know, you only need it to be somewhat accurate half the time, and you hope your deep guys can make the plays. He's interestingly, I saw a stat. He's 16-0 in games where he's been sacked 2 or fewer times. He's going to get that in Indy all day long. The Colts allowed 19 sacks last year on a incredibly immobile Phillip Rivers. You would assume that a scrambling, maybe not even scrambling, just a player that can move more than 4 yards in 20 seconds is gonna be harder to hit. He's been working out really well with some of the guys, some of the wide receivers, particularly Pittman and Desmond Patmon, who was a 6th round pickup, who we saw absolutely nothing of last season. But the guy looks huge, and I know it's very different working out with little pressure in the off season to go and doing it. But Patmon could be a bit of a sleeper for next season because he seems to be getting deep very, very quickly and going and making some silly grabs. And it's a kind of a worry because, you know, these silly catches he's making are probably because the balls aren't incredibly accurate, but they're accurate enough for him to get a hand on it and make the catch. So that could be. It could be a good sign, a sign of things to come.
So it sounds like you're a little optimistic, which is good. This is the time of year to be optimistic.
Cautiously optimistic. And you know, the biggest hit on cap for Carson Wentz this year falls in Philadelphia. So it's not even costing up the Colts too much. So Philly are paying Carson Wentz more to play for the Colts than Dallas are paying Dak to play for Dallas.
Yeah, and the terms that what they gave up for him, it could end up being
and that's
firsts, or it could end up being a first. But if it's a first, it's because the Colts had a good season under him and he played at least a certain amount.
So 75% of snaps if the Colts don't make the playoffs, or 70% of snaps if the Colts do make the playoffs. I think the Titans are weaker this already going into next year. They're weaker. They didn't have a great offseason last year, and I'm hoping that trend continues. Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence are still Jacksonville, and the Texans are the Texans. So, that may be a bit harsh on Jacksonville. They've got a lot of space. They could do a huge amount of rebuilding, but a team 1 year into rebuilding is still a team 1 year into rebuilding.
It's Urban Meyer. Like, he will straight give everyone else in the division to Corona if that's what it takes to win. Let's be honest. He'll be like, enjoy these cookies. They're really good.
I have full belief in Chris Ballard and Frank Reich to carry on doing what they've been doing. We've been on an upwards trajectory since those guys come in, and I can only see it continuing.
So let's talk about Ballard specifically, because the next thing I want to ask you about is the draft. So what kind of positions would you like to see them target early? They can be specific players that you're eyeing or just positions of need.
So I think we have to go for a left tackle. Costanzo's gone. He's a big miss. He had a good year again, even though he only came back in for a year. I think he signed a 2-year deal, but I think most people were expecting to get another year out of him. I think Chris Ballard's going to do a Chris Ballard, and he's going to trade back out of the first, trying to recoup some of those picks that we've given away to Philly, or that pick in the third round. But I think we can probably trade back 5 or 6 spots and pick 1 or 2 extra picks up. And if there's a GM in the league that knows how to pick up good late round talent, it's Chris Ballard. He turned a pick that ended up being Sam Darnold into Leonard, Quentin Nelson, Braden Smith, and about 3 other guys and 2 picks, which is just insane. So I think the first pick we're going to make, it will be at 55, and it's a big if. But if he's still on the board, I'd quite like to see Liam Eichenberg picked up there. Good left tackle. He's a big man. He's allowed 0 sacks left tackle in his last 2 years. He's big, tall, long arms, good pass blocker. He's got great footwork, and he's really good against the blitz. Only problem really is that he's maybe not the most athletic of guys in that list, so some of the better pass rushers might be a problem for him. But I think, then you have Quentin Nelson stood next to him, who more than covers that aspect. He's probably going to fall 2nd or 3rd round, so the Colts could do a lot worse than go for him. I don't think he's going to go any higher than the 2nd round, because the offensive line class is insanely deep this year. There's a lot of very good O-line guys.
Well, on that note, here's a quick question. So it has been pretty clear, and by trading by Wentz, I think it's even more clear that the Colts believe that they are on the verge of being Super Bowl contenders. Do you think that drafting a rookie and putting him in the starting lineup at left tackle makes more sense than going after some of these free agent tackles? Let's say Trent Williams, Orlando Brown, wanting a trade out of Baltimore. Some of these guys who you don't have to worry about getting them up to speed and protecting the quarterback, who has shown to be erratic when there's pressure in his face. What do you think? Do you think that makes more sense?
Yeah, because I think the cost for Brown would be in the trade would be silly.
That's true.
It goes completely against the Chris Ballard school of putting together a winning team, and I think you'd be paying him way too much. He's gonna be earning big money anywhere he goes. I think. Again, it just does. It's not necessarily that I think it makes more sense. I just think it makes more sense being Indy and having Chris Ballard work the way he works. The Colts subreddit is there's a catchphrase: "Trust the binder," and I do. I trust what he's doing 100%. The guy is an absolute genius, quite frankly.
So who do you think? So what do you think they target in free agency? So let's assume that they do pick up a tackle in the 2nd round.
It's a difficult one, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was we only really targeted 1 or 2 guys, regardless of who we actually get. I know that we've got quite a lot of talent leaving, but pre-draft, I think we might see the Ballard trending down towards not really chasing too many players early, and then going and hoovering up the guys that have somehow fallen, maybe because cap issues and people preferring to look to the draft. That being said, I think we need to look, funnily enough, at wide receiver and edge. And the two guys I mentioned earlier, Cole Lawson and Curtis Samuel, I'd be delighted if we managed to pick those two up. I think we'll probably see a few sort of defensive backs. You know, we might see like a Xavier Rhodes replacement come in. And you know, there's always kind of some of those less household name players that you need to pick up and replace every off season. But I think big names. I think we should get a big name in on the edge, and then I'd like to see a wide receiver. I feel like, you know, we've since I've been a fan, we've only had Reggie Wayne, and then we've only had T.Y. Hilton. We've never had a really good wide receiver core. You know, we've had like since
and Marvin Harrison before Wayne. Yeah,
that was before my time. So
right, I know.
But I mean, like, you know, if I think about the people that we've had backing up T.Y. Hilton, Philip Dorsett, who cares? Traded him for Jacoby Brissett. And then Dontrell Inman. I don't know if he plays anymore. Don't know where he is. But again, like, he's, you know, they're no name, very sort of low ceiling guys. And then there was another one who I should remember the name of, but I don't. I think he went to.
But that's telling that you can't remember the name.
Yeah,
your point is valid. Yeah.
He went to the Titans, and then he's been somewhere else since, and it's only 3 years since he left.
So before we wrap up, I want, because you started to mention it briefly earlier, but let's go into predictions. What are your predictions for their finish in the division? Where do you think? How deep do you think they'll go in the playoffs? Let's get a 2021 prediction for the Colts.
Right, give me a second, because I want to actually think about this properly, and I ran out of time to do it earlier. I'm just going to bring up the schedule, and I'm going to do this properly.
Colum, let's get. While you do that,
while you're doing that, I don't know if I shared this the last time I was on. The best PG heckle I ever heard at any sporting event was aimed at Phillip Rivers. So was in Denver, and Broncos are playing the Chargers, and there's a guy, and he was brilliant. He's throwing barbs at Phillip Rivers all day, but he just said, it was totally PG, but he screams at Rivers, Phillip Rivers doesn't read to his kids. And Rivers turns around, glares. You could see Chargers, the Chargers bench were in hysterics. Like, people were falling about laughing. The crowd were laughing.
That's a lot of kids not to read to.
It's a lot of kids not to read to, in fairness. But
how do you read to 9 children every night?
It's like a classroom. It's like a classroom, like in kindergarten.
With a megaphone.
You can hardly if you're doing one by one, you can't even cover that in a week, barely. But that is phenomenal. I appreciate what Phillip Rivers did this year.
Such a UK insult. Like, come over here, we'll probably use some slur at you. But I mean, like, have you ever heard UK or Phillip Rivers get angry? He's like, dag nabbit. That makes I'm madder than a pile of stew or whatever the hell.
There's been some Rivers trash talk videos on social media where it's just hilarious. And the other players, because he is a trash talker. That's he is,
yeah, and it's really funny as well. It's so funny. There's one, I can't remember who it was against this season, but in the previous play, Jonathan Taylor just absolutely bulldozed somebody, and Phillip Rivers is just at the line going, hey 58, he did you, man, he did you. Just like screaming at him, just going, and then like he calls a timeout and then comes back to trash him some more. It's amazing. Right, so I've had a look. So we're playing the AFC East, and then obviously a few others. So I'm going to say we win both Jacksonville games. We beat the Jets. We beat the Texans once. No, the Texans twice.
Yeah, we beat the Texans twice. Texans are finishing last next year.
But remember, the rivalry, the Colts always do it the hard way against the Texans.
Yeah, but without Deshaun Watson, it's not... We're just assuming he's not going to be there.
we beat the Niners, so that's 6-0. They're not our first 6 games, but we beat the Raiders.
I feel like you're about to predict an undefeated Colts season.
No. Win.
And we'll beat them.
Having said that, we'll beat the Cardinals, so that takes us to 9. We'll lose to the Rams.
And the Cardinals.
And Matthew Stafford's MVP season, sure.
yeah, and Matthew Stafford will be the first one to beat us, and I'll be crying into my beer because I'd have liked him in Indy.
Right.
Cry into your beard?
Beer.
Oh.
Beer,
whatever.
Crying is something on your face.
It goes from the beard down into the beard.
Now, here's one Brian's going to enjoy. We're going to beat the Dolphins in overtime.
At least we get to overtime. Okay.
So this is a fantasy podcast.
We'll lose to the Ravens. We'll beat the Titans once and lose to the Titans once. We will.
I feel like you're up to like 13 wins at this point.
I want to say
I'm not tallying.
I've lost count. We'll lose to the Bills. We'll beat the Seahawks, and we'll beat, for the first time that I can remember, the New England Patriots. I've never seen the Colts beat the Pats, and I've been steaming. I'm raging for it. I've never seen us beat the Pats, and I've never seen us beat the Steelers. And those two teams, I would, if we could win those 2 games in the season, I'd go the rest beaten. Frankly, I need to see those 2 teams lose because I hate them.
It's going to be tough because this is going to be Newton's MVP year.
Yeah.
So
he's gonna throw 11 touchdowns instead of 8. So I lost count. So I'm gonna guess we're gonna say 12-4. Or 12-5 if they end up doing 17 games in the regular season. All right, so they're in the playoffs now. Go.
12-13 wins. And then we're losing the AFC. We're losing the AFC Championship game to the Chiefs.
Okay, so one to the Chiefs again. Okay, great. All right, so we're going to wrap it up there, but we are going to bring both of you guys back for the flavor of the week, where we'll have more NFL content. So make sure to stick around for that. Thank you, Nate, from the Un-American Football Show. Thank you, Colum, from the Irish NFL Show. And as I mentioned, they will be rejoining us for the Flavor of the Week episode. Thank you so much for those listening. Please make sure to subscribe, tell your friends. We keep getting more 5-star reviews, still undefeated somehow. I just found out yesterday that there's a separate Apple podcast in the UK than there is in the US. So we're all 5 stars in the UK too. So that's great. I'll have to check if Ireland has one. We are now on. We have our own Patreon. We have a Discord community. Check for the links for those in the episode description. Social media official PP Pod on Twitter. You're watching this on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Thanks again for listening, and make sure to stick around for the Flavor of the Week.
Later.